Shalom, Israel, Most High Christ bless. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Zelazar.
and we are children of Israel. We're back once again on the Sabbath to bring out another lesson to you. Blessed Sabbath to anyone watching. Um, we're going to continue on with this series of lessons that we've been dealing with for a little while. The principal things for the whole use of man's life. This week, we're going to be dealing with the blood of the grape, which is talking about wine. The blood of the grape, which is wine. Um, but before we actually even get into the lesson, um, there's just something that I want to address real quick that I've noticed over the past month or so that nobody seems to really be talking about in the Israelite community, which needs to be spoken about. Um, let me share my screen first. You're seeing people talk about it online, but I just want to point something out. Can you see the screen?
There it is, yeah.
All right. So before we get into the lesson, I just want to bring some awareness to this for um, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the Israelites that the Bible's speaking of. And from my observation, from sitting back and watching what's going on, there are a lot of videos popping up on YouTube where people are, especially so-called Black Americans, quote unquote, I know I said so-called, are in an uproar. Some it's fear. Some people it's agitation. Some people listening to their videos is confusion because the same question keeps coming up as to why is Trump doing this? Um, as you can see, news about Trump deploys troops to DC. The question people are suddenly asking themselves as he's doing this is why is Trump sending these troops into quote unquote so-called black hoods to harass black people? You see, our number one, our people thought, at least the so-called blacks thought everything was good when they were, just harassing the Northern Kingdom and taking them into custody and deporting them. See, many of our people have fed into the illusion that we're separate people and that's you guys, that's what you get. That has nothing to do with us. And in your pride and arrogancy, now you're going to reap what you sowed. Instead of coming to your brothers and sisters' defense, now the hammer is going to be brought down on you. It was just a matter of time, which is what um, the nation of Esau has always done to our people. Go back and look at the history. Every time they've had us in captivity, it's been the same thing. They go after the Northern Kingdom first. Once they, feel like they've got the Northern Kingdom subdued or under control, then they go after the Southern Kingdom. It's history repeating itself. Unfortunately, many of you have your heads buried in the sand to where you don't want to acknowledge the truth. Um, but you're going to continue putting out videos asking why. in this confused tone. So we'll click on this one here. There's a lot of news stories. Trump sends 800 National Guard troops to crack down on DC crime. Here's what they'll do. President Donald Trump deployed 800 National Guard troops to the streets of Washington, D.C., a rare flex of his presidential authority over the military while a court molds the legality of his prior orders sending troops to Los Angeles. Speaking at the White House on August 11, Trump said he had mobilized District of Columbia National Guard troops to respond to what he has claimed are rampant crime rates in the nation's capital, who also seized control of the Washington's local metropolitan police force. You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming weeks, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said at the news conference. They will be strong. They will be tough. The deployment of hundreds of soldiers onto Washington streets takes Trump's unprecedented use of the military, which he has already ordered to crack down on protests and help deportations, in a new direction. What will the National Guard troops do? The mission of 800 DC Guard members will resemble how troops are helping immigration agents swarm the southern border, the Army said. Between 100 and 200 troops will support law enforcement at any given time, according to a statement. According to the Army, which is responsible for deploying the District of Columbia National Guard, the troops will be tasked with administrative and logistical duties and supporting law enforcement with their physical presence. When will the National Guard deploy to Washington, D.C.? National Guardsmen tapped for the mission will be notified on August 11 and will begin trickling in within the next week, said Major Montrell Russell, an Army spokesperson. In the coming weeks, at least 500 troops will join the 1,200 National Guard personnel already assigned to carry out administrative duties at immigration enforcement offices in more than a dozen red states, including DNA swabbing and fingerprinting arrestees. So you see what the goal is here. That not only are they just satisfied with snatching people up off the streets and deporting them, but they want to have your fingerprints, they want your DNA. What do you need their DNA for? Yeah, you know what I mean? But this is Esau, and our people don't get it yet. All right. The Trump administration has already mobilized thousands of National Guard troops as part of its sweeping plans to deport undocumented immigrants and close down the U.S. Mexico border. Plans sent to the Pentagon by the Department of Homeland Security requested 20,000 troops to help immigration agents search for undocumented immigrants and migrant children and respond to protests at detention facilities. Trump said more National Guard troops from other states could also be assigned to the streets of Washington. His mobilization order also authorized Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to work with state governors to use their National Guard troops if necessary. Will Scharf, a White House aide, said at the news conference. Is the deployment legal? Now, that's one of the questions that needs to be answered that some people are not wanting to ask. Says the DC National Guard is unique, meaning Trump's use of it skirts restrictions on the military carrying out law enforcement duties. It operates under the president's control and is mobilized by the Army. It is also not subject to the same bans on carrying out law enforcement functions as state National Guard personnel are when a president deploys them as federal forces. To deploy National Guard personnel from any of the 50 states to help Washington's police, Trump would need approval from that state's governor, because under law, only the governors have the power to deploy the National Guard into their respective state cities. President doesn't have that power to do so, but With Washington, D.C., it's a different story. And that's why he's using D.C. as a means to see how far he can go. It's like his test city. See how far he can take things. Trump administration heads to court over National Guard use. The Trump administration is facing legal challenges over his deployment of California National Guard personnel earlier this summer to suppress protests in the Los Angeles area over widespread deportation. Gavin Newsom, the state's Democratic governor, sued over the deployment, saying it violated the law surrounding when guardsmen can and can't carry out law enforcement related duties. That case returns to federal court for a trial starting on August 11. A judge previously ruled in the Trump administration's favor. Has the National Guard been deployed to D.C. before? It's not the first time Trump had deployed National Guard personnel to Washington streets. In his first term, Trump deployed National Guard troops to suppress protests over racism and police brutality that exploded in the summer of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. Trump brought in troops from the District of Columbia and other states under the permission of 11 governors and unprecedented mobilization. All right, so he saw he got away with it once, and he's doing it again. But again, this is the question. Why all of a sudden right now? Why did Trump just so happen to suddenly decide to bring National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. and start cracking down on quote unquote so-called black people? From my observations, I'm going to take it back again to the situation, the incident that happened under Trump's first term in front of the Lincoln Memorial when you had the situation with the young Edomite kid that was there with his high school group with the quote unquote so-called Native American tribe that went viral when they had the face off and all of that. The underlying news story that was there was the fact that it wasn't just these kids against this Native American group, but that there was a certain group of Israelites. There was one of our Israelite camps out there in front of the memorial that provoked a lot of this situation that happened. That's how I'll put it. They provoked some of the things that they said and did towards these kids. Anybody that, would be upset, you go after their kids in a certain manner. It went viral, and you heard me say it before, it woke up a sleeping giant. Unfortunately, we as the Israelites don't learn our lesson. That's been the problem with us from the get go, that our people are so full of pride that we don't listen at all to what we've been told in the scriptures. If anyone's been paying attention, you see, and this is what happens in the Israelite community. People get focused on, just some of the most minute, foolish things that they'll speak on and talk about and make videos about and bash camp to camp and leader to leader and do all this foolish stuff. But nobody will correct any of these leaders or any of these brothers in this truth when they do foolish things that brings too much attention and too much awareness to our cause and ultimately causes our people to suffer the ramifications of their actions. And you may be wondering, what do I mean by that? Trump sending these troops out at this particular time did not happen by accident. If you go back, I don't want to put no videos up. I don't want, but go and look up the videos for yourself because they were popping up all over YouTube for like the past couple of weeks before last week when Trump made the decision. There were certain groups of certain camps that were out. They were out there for maybe like a week or two. I don't know exactly because the videos that they were putting up were kind of sporadically being put online, and some of them were as far back as even a month ago. That they had been in Washington D.C. right in front of the White House, which some of them have done yearly for the past, like few years or so, 5 years maybe. Um, which, and this is my view on it, okay? It's foolish, especially right now. So anybody with common sense would be able to correlate the fact that you had a group of our Israelite brothers out there. They're having a unity camp. So it wasn't just one camp, there were multiple camps that were out here right in front of the White House, not just out to teach our people, but if you watch the videos, because they posted videos online, they were out here or out there antagonizing the other nations that were, either in the vicinity or walking by or coming up to ask questions, um, speaking foolishly out in front of the White House, um, without thinking about what their actions would cause to their people. Do you really think that the president, the vice president, all these senators and congressmen, and all these people that are hanging out in that area, and secret servicemen, I'm sure they had you all these brothers in their crosshairs while they were out there teaching. They've got snipers up on the roof of the White House. They got all over the White House. They got Secret Service agents walking around undercover. All if you've never been to Washington D.C. before, I've been there before. I visited. You cannot just walk around Washington D.C. and think that you're just walking around there freely and that you're not surrounded by people of almost all walks of government. So you had these camps out there teaching, and then a week later, all of a sudden, the president is deploying troops into the DC area. Scratch your head on that one. Is that hard to figure out? Seriously, ask yourself, is that hard to figure out the reason why he decided to do this? And the reason why I bring it up again is because you see this continually with the Israelite community. You have many in the Israelite community that are so much more focused on views, getting a name. They have ulterior motives. They're not truly out here to wake up the 12 tribes of Israel and get us up out of here. All right. So I just want to bring out some scriptures just to bring some awareness so that Lord's will, they'll wake up and understand that look at what you just caused again. You guys come out there and show out. Now our people are suffering. You guys are now gone back to your respective cities and states and back on your corners teaching in other places again and leaving our people who have not yet woken, they haven't woken up. They don't know they're Israelites yet. They don't know what's going on. But now they're suffering the ramifications of your actions, of your foolishness. Seriously. Can Ezra, have you read anywhere in the scriptures where Christ or his disciples, the apostles, whether it was Apostle Paul, Peter, Barnabas, any of the apostles, Timothy, any of them went right up to like King Agrippa's castle or his right outside his palace and started teaching that you guys are the devil, you going into captivity with all kind of profanity, making fun of, like there was one video I was watching. There was a couple of Moabites that came up, and some other Asians and stuff, and just antagonizing, just out there to put on a show, speaking reckless and foolish. And now look at the situation you put our people in. Real quick, let's go to Matthew 10 and 16. Because for some reason, some of our brothers in this truth don't seem to understand what this means.
The book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse 16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove.
Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Our forefathers had enough sense to not go out right into the lair of the enemy and start antagonizing them. You're out there poking, it's like you see a grizzly bear out in the wild, and you go up and start poking the bear in the stomach and think that he's not going to respond angrily, that he's not going to get agitated, that he's not going to get pissed off and attack you. I'm serious. A lot of our brothers in this truth, as I don't want to even use the word wise because some of them lack wisdom. As much knowledge of the scriptures as many of them have, they are very ignorant and foolish, very ignorant and foolish. Christ said, "Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." A wise man would not go out right in front of the White House, right in front of what kind of leader they've got in office right now, and start poking it, start antagonizing it. Do you really think that it didn't get back to the powers that be in the White House that, oh, you got these Israelites right outside the gates again? We need to do something about this. And again, not a conspiracy theory, just using common sense. This happened, and almost as soon as they were gone and left, now this has happened. B being a direct cause of A. A being these Israelites out there teaching, being reckless in front of the White House, and B being the president subtly deploying troops out into Washington, D.C. area to mess with and harass so-called black people. And everybody's online. You got a lot, like I said, there's a lot of videos popping up of people that's like, why? Why is Trump messing with black people? Well, like what in DC? Like what's going on? Why is this happening? They're clueless, absolutely clueless. While you brothers are back in your states again or cities wherever you came from, after you went out there and again put on a show, caused trouble, and now you've left your people in a bad situation that they didn't have to be in right now, at least for now. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Again, some of you don't seem to have any clue what Christ meant when he said that. Nowhere in the scriptures are we told to go out in front of the powers that be and start provoking them and poking and prodding at them, which many of you get off on doing. And again, it's not for the edification of our people. It's more for you to feed your own egos. That, yeah, we got views. We is out in front of the White House bringing it out. You're getting people online, you know what I mean, making comments on your videos. Oh, the brothers was out there. You brothers is out there, powerful brothers, bringing the word out powerful. And you patting yourselves on the back, feeling good, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, not taking the time to think of what your actions are going to do to to harm your people. It's crazy. And I'm serious. I'm shocked that nobody has opened their eyes to see that this is what's going on. That it wasn't by accident that right after the Israelites were there and left, that Trump deployed the troops. Let's go to Philippians 2:15. And
The
you're
book of
gonna just
Philippians,
read 2:15.
chapter 15. Okay. The book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse 15. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among who ye shine as light in the world.
So we know we're in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation such as the US of A. We know this is a crooked and perverse nation. We know that the man in office is a crooked and perverse man. Their leader is the epitome of what this is talking about. They put a person in office that is basically being described to a T right here in the scriptures. And he is the perfect picture of what this nation stands for. This is a crooked and perverse nation, and as it says, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. We are supposed to let our light shine before men. But there is nowhere in the scriptures that tells us to go out and provoke the powers that be. No scripture to be out there poking the bear, antagonizing the leadership in this nation, the way that they just don't get it. Let's go to Romans 13:1.
The book of Romans, chapter 13 and verse 1. Let every soul be subject unto the highest power, for there is no power but of God. The power that be are ordained of God.
The powers that be are ordained of God. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Many of you will agree. God, the Most High is the one that put Trump in office. He needed to light a fire under our people. But some of you don't seem to read. Let's read verse 2.
Verse 2: Whosoever therefore resisted the power, resisted the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation.
And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. We already know our people are running around this perverse nation lost, this crooked nation lost in the sauce. They have no idea who they are, no idea where they come from, nor do they care to know because this nation has made it too easy for our people to sin. They made it pleasurable, they made it easy, and our people are out here just caught up in all kinds of sin and wickedness and doing all kinds of rioting and foolishness. The young kids getting in groups, running in the stores, doing smash and grabs, doing all kinds of wickedness and evil that the Lord told us not to do. So, of course, the powers that be are going to bring the hammer down. Let's read on. Read verse 3.
Verse 3: For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same.
So, when these people that are in power, when they see us acting as the sons of God, carrying ourselves, you see, we shouldn't have to keep going out throwing, like we're the real Israelites. You guys love talking it, but you won't live it. Many of you will not live it. So many of these leaders in the Israelite community are caught up in so much wickedness and evil that it's unreal. That's why he says, do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. If you just keeping the commandments, going out teaching your people, try to be discreet. That's the problem with our people. Our people don't know how to be discreet. Always want to put on a show. Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. When they see us out here keeping the Lord's commandments, they're gonna have no other choice to say, man, these people got wisdom. Yeah, they're very peaceful. They're not gonna be able to say anything evil against us. But when you guys are out there cursing, using all kind of profanity, antagonizing people, Asian people walking by, Indian people coming up asking questions, and you're just out there just acting a fool, just being foolish. That doesn't paint a good light. It doesn't paint a good picture of us as a whole as the Israelites. They're not going to praise us. He's ready to send the troops in now. It says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Like I said, our people are already out there caught up in wickedness and evil, committing all kinds of crimes, shooting and unaliving each other like it's nothing over stupid. What was it? There's another so-called YouTube influencer or TikTok influencer. I don't remember what the guy's name was. The video just popped up. He was sitting in his car doing a live video. Somebody came up, tried to steal his chain, and ended up shooting him. He was apparently somebody real famous, I guess, in the Chicago area, I believe it was. But again, look at what our people are caught up in. They're already out there caught up in wickedness and evil. But many of you don't understand that you standing out there speaking reckless is just as wicked and evil as the things that our people or that don't know they're Israelites are doing. It's just as foolish. Read verse 4.
Verse 4: For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil.
For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, he's not playing around. He says, be afraid. Be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. Trump don't have control over these troops for nothing. He doesn't have the power that he's got right now for nothing. Go back to the book of Daniel and read. The powers that be didn't have that power in Babylon for nothing. That power was given by the Lord to punish our people for the foolishness. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. That's why Trump is doing what he's doing. He's turning the heat up on our people, but it's the Lord that's having him do it because our people are stupid and foolish. Let's read verse 5. Did you read verse 5?
No. Verse 5. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake.
Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. Some of you guys got no conscience. You don't even take the time to think about the ramifications of your actions before you go out and do stuff. Read on.
Verse 6. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers attending continually upon this very thing.
Read on.
Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor.
So again, the scriptures, I haven't read anywhere in the scriptures where we're told to go out and antagonize the powers that be. What I keep reading in the scriptures, we're being told, you know what? They're the powers that be. They're not in power by accident. Better take heed. And many of you just ignore what the scriptures say to do what you want to do. Let's go to Titus 3 and 1.
Titus 3 and 1.
Titus 3 and 1.
Here we go. The book of Titus, chapter 3 and verse 1. Put then in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good work.
And that's what we're doing right now. Reminding you, brothers out here, put you back in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good work. This is what the scriptures is telling us to do. Yeah, we need to go out and teach our people. Yes, we need to go out and wake up the 12 tribes of Israel. But there is a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And the way some of you guys are moving is just causing more harm than good, both to the reputation of the Israelites that are out here doing good and to your people out here who have no clue, who are just getting caught up in the crosshairs. Let's go to 1 Peter 2. You're going to read verses 13 through 17.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2, and verse 13. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of a man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the kings as supreme, or unto governors, as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praises of them that do well. For so is the will of God, that with well doing ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as of the servants of God. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king.
So, as it says, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or unto governors as are unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. See, all these scriptures that we're reading, are you reading anywhere in there, Ezra, that it says that we're supposed to be out here provoking the powers that be? You don't read that in the scriptures. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. For so is the will of God, that with well doing ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. In other words, by the keeping of the commandments and them seeing us doing well, that's what's going to put them to silence. That's when they're not going to be able to say any evil against us or this truth. The only reason why that they can continually put out negative press and evil things about the Israelite community is because many of you are out there still acting foolishly and ignorant and still caught up in all kinds of wickedness and evil. And it keeps getting brought out in video after video, leader after leader getting caught up in all kinds of wickedness and ignorance. And we haven't learned our lessons yet. Verse 16, as free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, because that's what some of you guys are doing. This somewhat kind of free liberty that we got here in America, some of you are using that as an excuse to go right out in front of the White House and just be malicious, just be foolish, talk reckless, antagonizing the powers that be right in front of their home. And any of you, if somebody came out in front of your house, put on a microphone, and started talking all kinds of foolishness in front of your house about you, what are you going to do? You know you're not just going to sit back in your house and be like, oh, well, just let them talk. You know that's not how it's going to go down. So what makes you think, what makes you believe that you could go out in front of the White House, right in front of, like I said, you don't read anywhere in the scriptures where Christ or the apostles or any of them went right in front of the king's palace. You didn't see Christ out there in front of King Agrippa's palace. You didn't see none of the apostles out there telling them, you going into captivity. Oh, you gonna die. Prepare slaughter for his children. You do not read about them doing this stuff. Even Paul had enough sense in Romans when he wanted to remind us about the Most High hating Esau. Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. He was discreet about the fact that he was talking about the descendants of Esau, that they have a coming destruction. He had enough sense to realize this letter may be read, so I better be real discreet about how I write this. If Paul was as foolish as our brothers are today, he could have easily just wrote, yeah, the Lord hates you guys. He hates the so-called white man. All y'all going into captivity. He gonna kill all y'all. Read Obadiah. All of you going into captivity. But that's not what he did. He was wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. He followed what Christ said perfectly. But for some odd reason in 2025, that's real hard for an Israelite to do today. To learn how to be discreet. Let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2, and you're going to read verses 10 and 11.
The book of Second Peter, chapter 2 and verse 10. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government, presumptuous are they self-willed, they are not afraid to speak evil of dignities, whereas
Dignities.
angels which are greater in power and mightier, not railing accusations against them before the Lord.
So again, but chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness and despise government, presumptuous are they, self-willed, they are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. Some of these brothers got no fear of going out and they think they're being cool. They think they're being bold. They ain't no fear. But then we read that the Lord said to fear. Verse 11 again, whereas angels, which are greater in power and might, bring not railing accusation against them before the Lord. Some of you need to stop going out and just provoking. You know what? Let's look up that word provoke, because I keep using it. And I'm using it for a reason, because they don't seem to understand what this word means. Let's look up the word provoke. Let me know when you can see it.
There it is.
Provoke, verb, stimulate or give rise to, a reaction or emotion, typically a strong or unwelcome one in someone. So to provoke someone means you're stimulating, or you're giving or making them rise to, or getting a reaction or an emotion out of them. Here's a better one: stimulate or incite someone to do or feel something, especially by arousing anger in them. This one's even better: deliberately make someone annoyed or angry. And some of you guys are going out there because you're deliberately trying to provoke this government and the powers that be to react so you could get views. Let's just be honest about it. That's all you care about. You worried about views. You're worried about trying to be known as the top camps, the top leaders, top teachers. You want the accolades. You want all the hoopla that goes along with having these men follow you. You have one leader in Israel that recently just got blasted for the foolishness that he was caught up in. And when asked the question about, well, what about all these men that looked up to you? All these men you had in your camp that, they wanted to emulate you. They wanted to be like you. Well, it's their fault for following me. That's their fault for believing me. I can't, paraphrasing, but somewhere along the lines, that was his answer. That's their fault for believing me, for believing in me. When are some of you going to figure out that some of these men that you're following don't care nothing about you? They don't care anything about this truth. They don't care about keeping the commandments of God. For many of these men, this is just something that they found that is a come up, whether it's financially or what's the word I'm looking for? They're getting some kind of a star power from it. They're getting a big reputation. Their name is getting out there. I would for lack of words, that's the only way I could explain it.
Popular?
Popularity. Thank you. So it's either by coming up with money, financially, or popularity. It's a popularity contest, no different than when you were in high school. Everything was about popularity. Thank you for that word. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. But that's what's going on. So if you really want to know the reason why this suddenly happened, go look up these videos. All you got to do is go to YouTube and you will see which camps it were that were out there teaching over the past, couple of weeks or however long they were out there. And then that week later, all of a sudden, Trump is talking about sending the troops to DC. I think he was really hoping that them Israelites was still going to be out there on the streets teaching in front of the White House because they would, I'm sure, going to scoop every single one of you guys up. Which it still might, it could happen to all of us, which is going to happen at some point because the scriptures tell us it's going to. But you're putting things in motion before they have to be. All because, again, you want clicks, you want views. Again, provoke, stimulate, or give rise to a reaction or emotion, typically a strong or unwelcome one in someone. Stimulate or incite someone to do or feel something, especially by arousing anger in them. And you know what? It worked. You aroused anger in Trump. You already knew this is an angry man. You already know that this man has got a temper. You already know what kind of man he is. He's a wicked, sinful man. We already know this. Deliberately make someone annoyed or angry. And when some of you teach out on the streets, that is exactly what you're going out there to do. Some of you are deliberately out there trying to annoy people and deliberately trying to make people angry so that they can respond, so you could get a good video that you can post so that you can get views. Let's be honest about it. All right. So that's, I just wanted to put that out there. Whether you agree, disagree, you care, you don't care, or whatever the case is. But some of you need to take a hard look in the mirror and figure out why you're really out here on the streets teaching. Why are you really in this truth? What is your true purpose? What are you really trying to do? What are your true motives? Because the troops are out there now. I haven't seen them out since the troops been deployed. I haven't seen them out there teaching right now. If they wanted to be so bold and provoke. It worked. So now that you provoked him, he's got the troops out there. Now, where are you guys at now? Where are you? Now your people are suffering of your actions. Why are you not out there on the streets in front of the White House now while the troops are out there protecting your people? Ask the question. All right. So that's all I'm gonna say with that. Let's get into this lesson now. Um, the principal thing for the whole use of a man's life, the blood of the grape. Um, let's open it up with Hebrews 5 and 12 through 14 again. And do you see anything wrong with what I said at all? Because if I'm
No,
wrong, correct me. Rebuke me. If I'm out of line or anything like that, it's up to you to let me know. So,
no,
but
everything's correct. I mean, you're
like this is what I've noticed over the past month in my observation. And again, you know what I mean? Like I said, it goes back to that same situation in front of the Lincoln Memorial a few years back, and they still haven't learned their lessons yet. So, all right, so go ahead and read what you got, though.
the book of Hebrews, chapter 5 and verse 12. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have become. Hold on, I lost it. I'm gonna start it again. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
And again, this goes back to the fact that many of our people in this truth have not exercised their senses, discern the difference between good and evil. That's why some of them need to be retaught, even some of the so-called leaders. Let's go to First Peter 2 and 2.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 2, as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
So some of you need to humble yourselves as little children, as the scripture says, become as newborn babes, and be willing to learn again. Because we've said it before that some of you have never really been under good leadership. You don't know what good leadership is. And you were on many of the brothers that are out here teaching were under some of the most wicked and worst leaders in Israel. They broke off and now they're out here on their own, and they're no different than the leaders that they left. And in some cases, they are even worse than the leaders that they left. All right. So bad leadership is just breeding more bad leadership in Israel. Let's go to Romans 13 and 11.
The book of Romans, chapter 13 and verse 11. And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believe.
So it's time for you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, to awake out of this deep sleep you're in. The Lord put the sleep on you, but it's up to you to to awaken yourself up. When you hear this truth, it's up to us. Either you're going to repent and keep the commandments, or you're going to rebel and not keep the commandments. That's the choice you've got. That's the choice that's been given to us from the very get-go. Keep my commandments and receive blessings, break my commandments and receive curses. And our people always choose the latter. Always. And that's been the problem from the very get-go. We always choose wrong. Our people just make bad choices, period. Let's go to Job 4 and 12 through 21.
The book of Job, chapter 4, and verse 12. Now, a thing was secretly brought to me, and my ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear cometh upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before my eyes. There was a silence, and I heard a voice saying, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he put not trust in his servants and his angels. He charges with folly. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth, they are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. Does not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom.
They die even without wisdom. And that's the theme with the majority of our people from time to time to time to time. Our people hate wisdom, they hate gaining wisdom. Our people lack wisdom. All right. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, and read verse 3.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, and verse 3. I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the season of men, which they should do under the heavens all the days of their life.
So he's saying here, I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom. So the first thing that we're going to figure out from reading this is that in the scriptures, wine can mean wisdom, or that it does mean with wine has a few different meanings in the scriptures, and we're going to go over them. But one of the first ones we're going to deal with first is that this wine represents wisdom. Let me read that again. I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart, meaning his mind, with wisdom. That wine is a metaphor for wisdom here in Ecclesiastes 2 and 3, letting us know that in the scriptures, sometimes when you read about the wine is talking about wisdom. All right, keep that in mind as you read the scriptures. That's why we're going through this. All right. Again, the principal themes for the whole use of a man's life. One of them is the blood of the grape, which is wine. We're going to show you through the scriptures that when it's saying the blood of the grapes, that it is talking about wine. All right. Um, there are precepts that make that abundantly clear also. So again, when we're reading the scriptures, sometimes when you read about the wine, it's talking about wisdom. Later on in the lesson, we're going to even show you that sometimes when it's talking about the wine, it's talking about lies. All right. Wine can represent lies, it could represent different doctrines and philosophies. All right. So, depending on the context in which it's used, it's got somewhat of different meanings. All right. But the wine is being used metaphorically for different meanings, different things. All right. Keep that in mind. So again, I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. So what is that good that we as the sons of men should be doing all the days of our life? That good is the keeping of the commandments. So again, when we're talking about the principal themes for the whole use of a man's life, it always comes back to this word, whether it's the water, whether it's the milk, whether it's the flour of wheat, what have you, whatever the case is, it always comes back to the same thing. This word, which is basically the commandments and the law. That's what we need to live. That's what we need to sustain us. Yes, we know that physically we have certain things that we need in order to sustain ourselves. All right. Those basic necessities of life that we need to live. And again, we've dealt with it both physically and we're dealing with it spiritually. All right. So keep that in mind as you go through these lessons. Let's go to Job 32:19.
The book of Job, chapter 32 and verse 19. And it says, behold, my belly is as wine which has no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles.
Hold on one second. How did I make that mistake, man? All right, let's hold off for a second. Give me a second. How did I do that? I somehow skipped over several of the opening precepts when I was entering putting the lesson together on here. Bear with me, you guys. Get this. All right, so let's back it up a little bit. This threw me off. All right. So let's go to Sirach 39 and 26.
29:36 or 26.
39 and 26.
Perfect. The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 29 and verse 26. Come, thou stranger, and furnish a table and feed
Here is
me
Sirach
of
39:26.
39:26, right? I might be reading some the wrong. Give me a second. Okay. Perfect. I got it. The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 39 and verse 26. The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing.
All right. So again, the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour, wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape. Over this time, we dealt with the water, we dealt with the fire, we dealt with the iron, we dealt with the salt, the flour of wheat, the honey, the milk, and now we're dealing with the blood of the grape. All right. So we're just backed it up a little bit. I made a mistake and cut out a little bit of the lesson when I was transferring the precepts onto here and cut some of it out. So we're gonna first go here. So we're dealing with the blood of the grape, which is wine. We know that now. Um, so I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so let me share the screen. So, like we did with all the other lessons that we did, we're asking the question, what is wine used for in everyday life? All right. So before we get into the spirit, I already messed up and got into it a little bit, but what is wine used for? What is wine exactly? So wine is an alcoholic beverage made from fermented grape juice, which can be produced from various grape varieties. It is consumed on its own, paired with food, and used in cooking. Additionally, wine can be collected and stored for investment or to improve with age. It has been a significant part of culture and religion throughout history, playing a role in various traditions and celebrations. All right, some people like drinking wine. Um, I particularly don't like the taste of it at all. You know what I mean? That's the only type of alcohol I've ever tasted before, and that wasn't until I came into this truth. And you have to have the wine for the communion. And I just being honest, I do not like the taste at all. So I know if I can't stand the taste of wine, there is no way I would ever drink beer or any other alcohol. I can't even stand the smell of beer. So I don't even want to imagine what it tastes like going down. Um, just a little, you see sometimes we do a little shot cup. We got like this much in there, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just wasn't made to consume alcohol, I guess. So wine. Says wine is an alcoholic drink made from fermented grapes. It is produced in many regions around the world in a wide variety of styles, influenced by different varieties of grapes, growing environments, viticulture methods, and production techniques. Wine has been produced for thousands of years, the earliest evidence dating from 6000 BCE in present day Georgia. Its popularity spread around the Mediterranean during classical antiquity and was sustained in Western Europe by winemaking monks and a secular trade for general drinking. New World wine was established by settler colonies from the 16th century onwards, and the wine trade increased dramatically up to the latter half of the 19th century when European vineyards were largely destroyed by the invasive pest. What is that? Phylloxera. After the Second World War, the wine market improved dramatically as winemakers focused on quality and marketing to cater for a more discerning audience, and wine remains a popular drink in much of the world. Wine is drunk in its own, paired with food and used in cooking. It is often tasted and assessed with drinkers using a wide range of descriptors to communicate a wine's characteristics. It is also collected and stored as an investment or improved with age. Its alcohol content makes wine generally unhealthy to consume, although it may have cardioprotective benefits. Wine has long played an important role in religion. The ancient Greeks revered Dionysus, the god of wine, from around 1200 BCE, and the Romans their equivalent, Bacchus, at least until the latter half of the second century BCE. It forms an important part of Jewish traditions such as the Kiddush and as it's central to the Christian Eucharist. All right. I'm trying to see exactly because I know it's pretty long. Um, yeah, it's a lot. So just read a little bit about it. Won't read too much. If you want to go back, this is Wikipedia. It's easy to find. Go to Wikipedia and type in wine if you want to know more about wine. All right, history. It says the earliest known traces of wine were found near Tbilisi, Georgia, 6000 BCE. The earliest known winery from 4100 BCE is the Irini One winery in Armenia. The subsequent spread of wine culture around the Mediterranean was probably due to the influence of the Phoenicians from 1000 BCE and Greeks from 600 BCE. The Phoenicians exported the wines of Byblos, which were known for their quality into Roman times. Industrialized production of wine in ancient Greece spread across the Italian peninsula into southern Gaul. The ancient Romans further increased the scale of wine production and trade networks, especially in Gaul around the time of the Gallic Wars. In medieval Europe, monks grew grapes and made wine for the Eucharist. Monasteries expanded their land holdings over time and established vineyards in many of today's most successful wine regions. Bordeaux was a notable exception, being a purely commercial enterprise serving the Duchy of Aquitaine and by association Britain between the 12th and 15th centuries. European wine grape traditions were incorporated into New World wine, with colonists planting vineyards in order to celebrate the Eucharist. Vineyards were established in Mexico by 1530, Peru by the 1550s, and Chile shortly afterwards. The European settlement of South Africa and subsequent trade involving the Dutch East India Company led to the planting of vines in 1655. Jesuit missionaries managed to grow vines in California in the 1670s, and plantings were later established in Los Angeles in the 1820s and Napa and Sonoma in the 1850s. Arthur Phillip introduced vines to Australia in 1788, and viticulture was widely practiced by the 1850s. The Australian missionary Samuel Marson introduced vines to New Zealand in 1819. The Great French Wine Blight began in the latter half of the 19th century, caused by an infestation of the aphid phylloxera brought over from America, whose louse stage feeds on vine roots and eventually kills the plant. Almost every vine in Europe needed to be replaced by necessity, grafted onto American rootstock, which is naturally resistant to the pest. This practice continues to this day, with the exception of a small number of phylloxera-free wine regions such as South Australia. The subsequent decades saw further issues impact the wine trade with the rise of prohibitionism, political upheaval in two world wars, and economic depression and protectionism. The cooperative movement gained traction with winemakers during the interwar period, and the Institut National de l'Origine et de la Qualité, whatever that says, was established in 1947 to oversee the administration of France's appellation laws, the first to create comprehensive restrictions on grape varieties, maximum yields, alcoholic strength, and vinification techniques. After the Second World War, the wine market improved. All major producing countries adopted appellation laws, which increased the consumer confidence, and winemakers focused on quality and marketing as consumers became more discerning and wealthy. New World wines, previously dominated by a few large producers, began to fill a niche in the market. with small producer meeting the demand for high quality, small batch artisanal wines. And consumer culture has emerged supporting wine related publications, wine tourism, paraphernalia such as preservation devices and storage solutions, and educational courses. All right, so this goes into the different types of styles of wine. All right, what I want to find is wine's health benefits is what I'm more. All right, here we go. Health effects. See what they say. How does it benefit our bodies if it does at all in any way? Health effects. Some studies have shown an association between moderate wine consumption and a decrease in cardiovascular and all cause mortality. However, alcohol consumption is also associated with an increased risk of a number of other health conditions, such as cancer. The stilbene, what is that? Resveratrol has shown cardioprotective attributes in humans. Grape skins naturally produce resveratrol in response to fungal infection, including exposure to yeast during fermentation. Nevertheless, the potential harms of regular alcohol consumption are considered to outweigh any such benefits. Research by Pesticide Action Network found that European wines contain large amounts of PFAS, forever chemicals, particularly TFA, which have long-term negative health consequences. So what exactly is PFAS? What is that? Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances are a group of synthetic, what is that? Organofluorine chemical compounds that have multiple fluorine atoms attached to an alkyl chain. There are 7 million known such chemicals according to PubChem. PFAS came into use with the invention of Teflon in 1938 to make what? Which I'm sure is a whole another article. Yeah, it's a whole another articles. So that's the thing with Wikipedia. You start clicking on stuff and it'll take you through a whole big rabbit hole of stuff.
Right.
All right. All right, let's see here. Short-term effects of health effects of wine. Let's try that. All right. The health effects of wine are mainly determined by its active ingredient, alcohol. Preliminary studies found that drinking small quantities of wine, up to one standard drink per day for women and 1 to 2 drinks per day for men, particularly of red wine, may be associated with a decreased risk of cardiovascular diseases, cognitive decline, stroke, diabetes mellitus, metabolic syndrome, and early death. Other studies found no such effects. Drinking more than the standard drink amount increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases, high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, stroke, and cancer. Mixed results are also observed in light drinking and cancer mortality. Risk is greater in young people due to binge drinking, which may result in violence or accidents. About 88,000 deaths in the United States are estimated to be due to alcohol each year. Alcoholism reduces a person's life expectancy by around 10 years, and excessive alcohol use is the third leading cause of early death in the United States. According to systemic reviews and medical associations, people who are non drinkers should never start drinking wine or any other alcoholic drink. So that means that I may be doomed for taking that little sample every week since I've never drank alcohol in my life. I doubt that'll have any effect, right?
Right.
Says the history of wine includes use as an early form of medication, being recommended variously as an antiseptic for treating wounds, a digestive aid, and as a cure for a wide range of ailments, including lethargy, diarrhea, and pain from childbirth. I wonder if that actually works. Says ancient Egyptian papyri and Sumerian tablets dating back to 2200 BC detail the medicinal role of wine, making it the world's oldest documented human-made medicine. Wine continued to play a major role in medicine until the late 19th and early 20th century, when changing opinions in medical research on alcohol and alcoholism cast doubt on its role as part of a healthy lifestyle. All right. Moderate consumption. Nearly all research into the positive medical benefits of wine consumption makes a distinction between moderate consumption and heavy or binge drinking. Moderate levels of consumption vary by the individual according to age, sex, genetics, weight, and body stature, as well as situational conditions such as food consumption or use of drugs. In general, women absorb alcohol more quickly than men due to their lower body water content, so their moderate levels of consumption may be lower than those for a male of equal age. Some experts define moderate consumption as less than 1 US fluid ounce, 150 milliliters, glass of wine per day for women, and 2 glasses per day for men. The view of consuming wine in moderation has a history recorded as early as the Greek poet Eubulus, who believed that 3 bowls were the ideal amount of wine to consume. The number of 3 bowls for moderation is a common theme throughout Greek writing. Today, the standard 750 milliliter wine bottle contains roughly the volume of 3 Killix cups, 250 milliliters, or 8 fluid ounces each. However, the Killix cups would have contained a diluted wine at a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 dilution with water. In his circa 375 BC play Semele or Dionysus, Eubulus has Dionysus say, 3 bowls do I mix for the temperate, one to health, which they empty first, the second to love and pleasure, the third to sleep. When this bowl is drunk up, wise guests go home. The fourth bowl is ours no longer, but belongs to violence. The fifth to uproar, the sixth to drunken revel, the seventh to black eyes, the eighth is the policeman's, the ninth belongs to biliousness, and the tenth to madness and hurling the furniture. Emerging evidence suggests that even drinking within the recommended limits may increase the overall risk of death from various causes. A 2018 systemic analysis found that the level of alcohol consumption that minimized harm across health outcomes was zero. What did I understand? What is 95% UI 0008, whatever that is, standard drinks per week. On the other hand, a 2020 USDA systemic review found that low average consumption was associated with lower risk of mortality compared with never drinking status. As of 2022, moderate consumption is usually defined in average consumption per day, while the patterns of consumption vary and may have implications for risks and effects on health, such as habituation from daily consumption or nonlinear dosage, harm associated from intermittent excessive alcohol use. So, intermittent excessive alcohol use. Because according to the CDC, it would be important to focus on the amount people drink on the days that they drink. Okay, the effects of alcohol on the body. Bones. Heavy alcohol consumption has been shown to have a damaging effect on the cellular processes that create bone tissue. And long-term alcoholic consumption at high levels increases the frequency of fractures. A 2012 study found no relation between wine consumption and bone and mineral density. Cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, the World Health Organization, has classified alcohol as a Group 1 carcinogen. Cardiovascular system. Professional cardiology associations recommend that people who are currently non-drinkers should abstain from drinking alcohol. Heavy drinkers have increased risk for heart disease, cardiac arrhythmias, hypertension, and elevated cholesterol levels. The alcohol in wine has anticoagulant properties that may limit blood clotting. Digestive system. The risk of infection from the bacterium Helicobacter pylori, which is associated with gastritis and peptic ulcers, appears to be lower with moderate alcohol consumption. Headaches. There are several potential causes of so-called red wine headaches, including histamine and tannins from grape skin or other Phenolic compounds in wine, sulfites, which are used as preservatives in wine, are unlikely to be a headache factor. Wine, like other alcoholic beverages, is a diuretic which promotes dehydration. Actually, I always, whenever we do the bread and wine, I always get a headache afterwards. That is absolutely true. I thought it was just because my body's not used to any kind of alcohol, and even just that little, it's just one gulp is all I ever take every time, and it seems to cause me to get a headache. It says, which promotes dehydration that can lead to headaches, such as the case often experienced with hangovers, indicating a need to maintain hydration when drinking wine and to consume in moderation. A 2017 review found that 22% of people experiencing migraine or tension headaches identified alcohol as a precipitating factor, and red wine is 3 times more likely to trigger a headache than beer. Food intake. Alcohol can stimulate the appetite, so it is better to drink it with food. When alcohol is mixed with food, it can slow the stomach's emptying time or potentially decrease the amount of food consumed at the meal. A 150 milliliter, 5 US fluid ounce serving of red or white wine provides about 500 to 540 kilojoules, 120 to 130 kilocalories of food energy, while dessert wines provide more. Most wines have an alcohol by volume percentage, which gives ABV of about 11%. The higher the ABV, the higher the energy content of a wine. Yeah, there's just so much. Let me see. So I guess they're saying there's a lot of different kinds of metals found in wine. What is this? In 2008, researchers from Kingston University in London discovered red wine to contain high levels of toxic metals relative to other beverages in the sample. Although the metal ions, which included chromium, copper, iron, manganese, nickel, vanadium, and zinc, were also present in other plant-based beverages. The sample wine tested significantly higher for all metal ions, especially vanadium. Risk assessment was calculated using target hazard quotients, a method of quantifying health concerns associated with lifetime exposure to chemical pollutants. Developed by the Environmental Protection Agency in the US and used mainly to examine seafood, a THQ, which is target hazard quotient, of between 1 and 5 would represent cause for concern. It says the researchers stressed that a single glass of wine would not lead to metal poisoning, pointing out that their THQ calculations were based on the average person drinking 1/3 of a bottle of wine every day between the ages of 18 and 80. However, the combined THQ values for metal ions in the red wine they analyzed reported to be as high as 125. A subsequent study by the same university using a meta-analysis of data based on wine samples from a selection of mostly European countries found equally high levels of vanadium in many red wines, showing combined THQ values in the range of 50 to 200, with some as high as 350. All right. So again, you could go and read about all of this, the history of wine and medicine, the risks of consumption. Actually, I'll read this one. The risk of consumption of wine. Because the lack of safe drinking water may have been one reason for wine's popularity in medicine. Wine was still being used to sterilize water as late as the Hamburg cholera epidemic of 1892 in order to control the spread of the disease. However, the late 19th century and early 20th century ushered in a period of changing views on the role of alcohol, and by extension, wine in health and society. The temperance movement began to gain steam by touting the ills of alcoholism, which was eventually defined by the medical establishment as a disease. Studies of the long and short term effects of alcohol consumption caused many in the medical community to reconsider the role of wine in medicine and diet. Soon, public opinion turned against consumption of alcohol in any form, leading to prohibition in the United States and other countries. In some areas, wine was able to maintain a limited role, such as an exemption from prohibition in the United States for therapeutic wines that were sold legally in drugstores. These wines were marketed for their supposed medicinal benefits, but some wineries use this measure as a loophole to sell large quantities of wine for recreational consumption. In response, the United States government issued a mandate requiring producers to include an emetic additive that would induce vomiting above the consumption of a certain dosage level. That's crazy. So basically, put an additive in there that if you drink a certain amount, it's automatically going to make you throw up. It says throughout the mid to early 20th century, health advocates pointed to the risk of alcohol consumption and the role it played in a variety of ailments such as blood disorders, high blood pressure, cancer, infertility, liver damage, muscle atrophy, psoriasis, skin infections, strokes, and long term brain damage. Studies showed a connection between alcohol consumption among pregnant mothers and an increased risk of mental retardation and physical abnormalities in what became known as fetal alcohol syndrome, prompting the use of alcohol packaging warning messages in several countries. All right, so the drinking of alcohol isn't all good. There are some drawbacks, and you got to think. You know what I mean? It's not by accident again that Esau has. Uh, oh, it's not. Oh man, that whole thing I was reading was not being shown. Why did you say something?
I didn't know which one you were reading.
Yeah, I went to a whole new screen. I didn't know it didn't switch. So this is what I was reading. The health effects of wine. Went through the health effects of wine. Read through the moderate consumption, the effects on the body, the bones, cancer, cardiovascular system, the digestive system, headaches, food intake. And then what I was just reading about was about the heavy metals that are found in it. And then I skipped down to um, the risks of consumption, is what I just finished reading. I think maybe I'm just tired. That's why my mind's all messed up and messing everything up today. All right. So, but that's, basically with the wine, um, the Bible, um, even Christ drank wine in moderation. You know that there are some of our people in the scriptures that um, didn't drink wine um, for various reasons. And even today, like I was about to say, it's not by accident that Esau has liquor stores um, on almost every corner in the so-called Black and Hispanic communities. It's not by accident. You know what I mean? So those negative effects of wine, they want to affect our people. Um, our people constantly drinking, 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 not in moderation. You have some of our people that wake up in the morning and start drinking. By the afternoon or mid afternoon, they're still drinking. By the evening, they're still drinking. And, alcoholism is a very major thing in the so called Black and Hispanic communities. So we do have to bring some awareness to that our people have got to stay away from the liquor, got to stay away from it. All right. So, wine in the scriptures, how, what was wine used for? We saw, how wine is used in the world, you use for drinking and things like that. Let's start off. Let's go to Genesis. Oh, let's go to Genesis 49. You're going to read verses 9 through 11.
The book of Genesis, chapter 49 and verse 9. It says, Judah is a lion. It says, Judah is a lion whelp from the prey. My son, thou art gone up. He stood down. He crouched as a lion and as an old lion who shall rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass colt unto the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes.
All right, so this is one of the precepts. We're going to bring a few of them. This is one of the precepts that shows what the blood of the grape is according to the scriptures. So, as we read, the principal things for the whole use of a man's life in Sirach 39:26 are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. So we know that the blood of the grape is talking about wine based on what we just read here in Genesis 49 and 11. Going precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. That's how you can get understanding of what some of these words mean in the scriptures. And that brings me to a whole nother thing, too. I'm telling you, you have just weird stuff going on in the Israelite community. You know what I mean? And you saw this before. I remember when the guy, what was his name, Jay the producer, left IUIC and went out and he opened up his recording studio and all of this, and he was doing classes and started, just went running back to Christianity and started teaching that Isaiah 28 and 9 is not talking about what we say it's talking about precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Just last Sabbath, you had a particular Israelite church group um, teaching a lesson that Isaiah 28 and 9 doesn't mean what we say it, but what we've been taught it means. That, this is how we get the understanding and all of this. I don't want to go too much into it. I started to be like, you know what, let me do a whole, but I'm not wanting to go do this back and forth with people. But just want to point out that about 24 to 25 minutes into the video, after the teacher went in on, how we're not supposed to use Isaiah 28 and 9, precept upon precept, and isolating scriptures and cherry picking, and we're not supposed to do all this, turns right around and goes precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. And I just kind of scratched my head and said, you just gave this whole opening presentation about how this is wrong and what we're doing with precept upon precept is wrong. Went through this whole presentation, and then you immediately turn around and use precept upon precept. It was just kind of like, at that point, I was like, you know what, man, our people are lost. Even the most what's the word I'm looking for? They mean well. The most well-meaning teachers in Israel, leaders in Israel, but sometimes they can't get out of their own way. It's almost like lately there's just been these weird doctrines popping up out of nowhere, from some of these schools and some of these camps, and you're just like, are these guys really wanting to build up their reputations that bad that they want to be the one to, yeah, we came up with this new teaching? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but yeah, there was another lesson put out. There's been several of them over the years, but um, This teacher thought they would put out a lesson that precept upon precept does not mean what we think it means. Um, when we're going to show you that precept upon precept is the way how you get the understanding of what some of these words mean in the scriptures. The Bible acts as its own um, dictionary, it acts as its own encyclopedia in a way, um, such as we just read, Sirach 39 and 26. The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and soft flour, wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. So, like somebody, for instance, like myself, I never drank alcohol in my life. Never had any dealings with any kind of wine. Didn't know nothing about wine, nothing. So me reading something like Sirach 39 and 26, I'm like, what's the blood of the grape? I have no idea what that's talking about. And I didn't. Had no clue what it was talking about. Before coming into the truth, I had no knowledge of the scriptures, which I believe probably on one hand was a good thing for me because I didn't have too many like um, preconceived um, thoughts about the scriptures themselves, other than, like I said last Sabbath, we were told not to read the scriptures. That's what I was told. Don't read it. You won't understand it. And I always felt that way whenever I read the scriptures. Like, man, this makes no sense. Makes none. So somebody saying, oh, only the ministers have the ability to understand. So don't read it for yourself. You'll confuse yourself. Like, okay. But I get it because I am confused when I read it. I'll hey, take your word for it, which was foolish. But the only way for someone like myself to understand what the blood of the grape is talking about is by reading the scriptures and coming upon a precept such as Genesis 49 and 11, which says he washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes, which lets you know that when it's talking about the blood of grapes, it's talking about wine. Blood of grapes is another way of saying wine. So that's the only way I would understand what that means, is going precept upon precept. So if I didn't go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, I wouldn't know what the blood of the grape was. I would have no clue. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32 and 9 through 14.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, and verse 9. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land and in the waste howling wilderness. He led him about, instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eyes. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, speaketh abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the field, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock and oil out of the filthy rock, butter of knee and milk of sheep with fat and lambs and rams of the breeds of Bashan and goats with the fat of kidneys of wheat, and thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape.
And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. So if it wasn't for the reading of Genesis 49 and 11, a person reading Deuteronomy 32 and 14 would have no clue unless you're a wine connoisseur what the pure blood of the grape is talking about. You wouldn't know that that's talking about the blood of the grape is wine. You wouldn't know unless you read he washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Oh, that's talking about wine. Wine is made from grapes and it's just using a metaphor that it's blood. Okay, because it looks like blood when it spills on your clothing. Okay, especially if it's red wine. Okay, I get it. It's a metaphor. But if you don't go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, how would you know? Let's go to Sirach 50 and 13 through 15.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 50, and verse 13. So were all the sons of Aaron in their glory, and the oblations of the Lord in their hands before all the congregation of Israel, and finishing the service at the altar, that he might adore an offering of the Most High Almighty. He stretched out his hand to the cup and poured of the blood of the grape. The He poured out of the foot of the altar a sweet smelling savior unto the Most High King of all.
So it says he stretched out his hand to the cup and poured of the blood of the grape. He poured out at the foot of the altar a sweet smelling savor unto the most high King of all. And this is talking about who? The sons of Aaron, which is talking about the Levitical priests when they did their oblations. So wine was used in our oblations and offerings with the Levitical priests, okay, which is termed as poured of the blood of the grape. Again, how would you know what that's talking about if you hadn't read Genesis 49 and 11? He washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. How would you know? All right. And again, going precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, we're going to have to go back to Exodus in order to understand what it's talking about in Sirach 50 and 13 about the sons of Aaron in their oblations pouring out the blood of the grape. Let's go to Exodus 29. You're going to read verses 38 through 40. Gives the explanation of what that's talking about, that in the oblations, they poured out the blood of the grape. What was it they were pouring out? Go ahead and read.
The book of Exodus, chapter 29, and verse 38. Now, this is that which thou shalt offer upon the altar: 2 lambs of the first year, day by day continually. The one lamb thou shalt offer in the morning, and the other lamb thou shalt offer at evening. And with the one lamb, a tenth deal of flour mingled with the flour part of a hin
With the fourth
of
part,
uh, and with the one lamb, a tenth deal of flour mingled with the fourth part of a hin of beaten oil, and the fourth part of a hin of wine for a drink offering.
and the fourth part of a hin of wine for a drink offering. That was what was commanded of the priests to do. They were to pour out drink offerings, and the drink offering was what? Wine, the, the blood of the grape, as was mentioned in Sirach 50 and 13 through 15. Wine was used in our oblations and our offerings. All right, let's go to Leviticus 23 and read verse 9 through 14. Precept upon precept to get an understanding. Okay, wine was used in our oblation, it was used in our offerings.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 9. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest unto the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheaf and a he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 tenth deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savior. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of a hin. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
All right. So, verse 13, and the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. So, in order for you to actually really understand what Sirach 50 and 13 through 15 is talking about, where it says, so were all the sons of Aaron in their glory, and the oblations of the Lord in their hands before all the congregation service at the altar, that he might adorn the offering of the Most High Almighty. He stretched out his hand to the cup and poured of the blood of the grape. He poured out at the foot of the altar a sweet smelling savor unto the Most High King of all. In order for you to understand what that's talking about, you've got to go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So we got to get a little bit over here in Exodus 29, where it's talking about they poured out a fourth part of a hin of wine for a drink offering. Leviticus 23 and verse 13, and the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. Now let's go to Numbers 15, and you're going to read verses 1 through 5. And you got people saying that precept upon precept, line upon line is wrong. You've been taught wrong. That's not how you get understanding of the scriptures. It's like, what are we doing now? It's crazy.
Right. The book of Numbers, chapter 15, and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye be come into the land of your habitation, which I give unto you, and will make an offering by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering, or a sacrifice, in performing a vow, or in a free will offering, or in a solemn feast, to make a sweet savor unto the Lord of the herb or of the flock, then shall he that offereth his offering unto the Lord bring a meat offering of a 10th deal of flour mingled with the fourth part of a hin of oil, and the fourth part of a hin of wine for a drink offering shall thou prepare with the burnt offering of sacrifice for one lamb.
All right. So again, and the fourth part of an hin of wine for a drink offering shalt thou prepare with the burnt offering or sacrifice for one lamb. Okay. So again, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. We're going to get a little bit from here, a little bit from there to get some understanding. And yes, there are some instances where you do need to read something from the beginning down to the end to get some kind of context. But that does not take away from the fact that the scriptures were written as a puzzle, that you have to put pieces together from here and a little bit of pieces from over there to get some of the understanding of some of the secrets and mysteries behind the scriptures. I remember when I was a little kid, we used to go to the library for school, in school, and check out books. And at that point, at that time, this was, like, I want to say 83, 84, 85. I was in like fourth, fifth grade, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. And there was these books um, that that they had at the time, that we would check out. My friends and I would check them out of the library and read them. I can't remember what the actual titles of the books were, but they were kind of cool. So what would happen is it was kind of like you know adventure type book. You would start reading, like let's say page one, and start reading. and the character, it gets down to the end of that page or that chapter, whatever the case is, and it would have a choice. If you choose to do this, then go to page 5 and the story will continue from there. But if instead you decide to do this for the character, then go to page 20. So it made it, it kind of made it fun. You would go from one, okay, let's go to page 20 and see where the adventure takes them from there. You start reading, and then it comes down to again, okay, now if you wanted to, he wanted to do this, then go to page such and such. But if you do that, then you go to, man, I can't even remember what those books were called. But as a
Mm.
kid, they were fun to read. They were really fun books to read. Um, but that's somewhat how the Bible was put together. You want to get understanding of certain things, you go here. You want to get understanding of others, what this word means. You've got different precepts and different areas of the scriptures where you can find the meaning. So I it's a Christianity thing. I know for one that vocab and these Christian apologetics are really pushing this to keep our people from knowing the truth. But it's crazy to me that Israelite teachers are starting to fall into this foolishness that precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little is not what we're supposed to be doing. That's wrong. We've been taught wrong. Again, I don't get it. All right. So what we're going to find though is that in the scriptures, like we said earlier, wine has different representations. It has different meanings. All right. One of those meanings for wine, we see it was used in our oblations. It was used in our to pour out at the altar um, when we gave our offerings. All right. Um, Wine in the scriptures sometimes represents wisdom. Sometimes it represents lies. Sometimes it represents different philosophies and doctrines and things like that. So um, that's where context does come in. In the context of where it's written, which one does it represent? All right. So let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 3, which we already read, but we're going to go back to it again to show that wine represents wisdom sometimes in the scriptures.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, and verse 3. I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold of folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life.
So, with this here precept, Ecclesiastes 2 and 3, we get from it that the wine is talking about wisdom. All right. I sought in mine heart, your heart meaning your mind, to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom. His heart that he gave himself unto the wine is talking about he gave his heart to wisdom. Is that hard to understand?
No.
It's just easy, right? Let's go to Job 32:19. So keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, Job 32:19 now.
The book of Job, chapter 32, and verse 19. Behold, my belly is as wine which hath no vent; it is ready to burst like new bottles.
Behold, my belly is as wine, which hath no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. Sometimes when you read the scriptures, the word belly is also talking about your mind. So the heart is not the only word in the scriptures that's used metaphorically for the mind. The word belly is also used metaphorically for your mind. So again, behold, my belly is as wine. In other words, my mind is as wine which hath no vent. It is ready, meaning my mind is ready to burst like new bottles. His mind has been filled up so much with information, so much wisdom, knowledge, understanding that it's ready to burst with all this new wine, all this new information, all this new wisdom. How do we know that sometimes the belly is talking about the mind? We'll go precept upon precept so that you can get an idea. All right. Because again, people are saying precept upon precept is wrong. That's not how you get the understanding. But yet they turned around and did exactly what we're doing right now, going precept upon precept. It
Right.
makes no sense. So let's go to Job 15:35.
The book of Job, chapter 15 and verse 35. They conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepared deceit.
And their belly prepareth deceit. Now let's ask yourself, in your stomach, can your stomach prepare deceit? What is the stomach? What is the stomach used for? The usefulness of the stomach is to do what? Mainly when you eat, your food goes down into your digestive system and holds your digestive tract, your intestines, bladder, all of that stuff is within your stomach. Can your stomach think? Does your stomach have its own mind where your belly can prepare deceit, can prepare lies? No, it cannot. So, what is the belly actually talking about here when it says, in their belly prepareth deceit? It's using the word belly as a metaphor for the mind. So, the belly, therefore, is the mind. And their belly or their mind prepareth deceit. Very simple, right? Job 15:35. They conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, in their belly prepareth deceit. It's talking about the mind. Another precept that shows you that the belly is talking about the mind. Job 32:19. Behold, my belly is as wine, making another metaphor, making another comparison, meaning his belly is as wine, or in other words, his mind is as wine, which hath no vent. All right, let's go to Psalms 31:9.
The book of Psalms, chapter 31 and verse 9. And it says, have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eyes is consumed with grief, yeah, my soul and my belly.
Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eye is consumed with grief, yea, my soul and my belly. So his eyes consumed with grief. What's a byproduct of you being consumed with grief? Your eye lets out what? Tears. You cry. Your soul can also be what? Overcome with grief. And your belly is you can get pangs in your belly. You know how they say if you worry yourself too much, you can get ulcers and things like that. But in the context of what we're reading right here, this is talking about the belly. Again, is talking about the mind. His mind is consumed with grief, not the stomach. All right. It can be a byproduct of your mind being consumed with grief, your spirit being consumed with grief, It could have an effect on your belly. Some people lose their appetite. Some people gain an appetite. They start eating a lot. Some people stop eating at all when when they're grieving, they're having problems. Their mind is not right. It does have an effect on the stomach to a point. You can start feeling pains in your stomach. Some people start to feel it where it starts their emotional well-being starts to have an effect on their physical body. All right. But yea, my soul and my belly, or in other words, yea, my soul and my mind. So, in other words, his eye, his soul, his mind was consumed with grief. Let's go to Proverbs 13:25.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 13 and verse 25. The righteous eateth to the satisfying of his soul, but the belly of the wicked shall want.
All right. So, if you read this, you're going to think this is actually talking about eating. That, oh, okay, he must have just ate till his soul was content. He ate all that lamb, he ate all that unleavened bread. He ate till he was satisfied. But that's not what it's talking about. The righteous eat it to the satisfying of his soul. This is speaking metaphorically again. But the belly of the wicked shall want. It's not talking about your stomach is going to want more food. The righteous eat it to the satisfying of his soul. Remember, as we've been breaking down um, uh, all of these, dealing with the water. Um, Let me go back up real quick. I don't want to mess it up. In Sirach 32 and 26. So the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour, wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing. So as we were breaking all these down, we were giving you the understanding through the scriptures of what these things are talking about metaphorically. All right. Let me go back down. So again, Proverbs 13:25, the righteous eat it to the satisfying of his soul. Remember, we had read to you. Uh, uh, the ear trieth words as the mouth tasted meat. I'm paraphrasing. Let me look it up. I don't want to mess it up. We brought this precept out when we did the other lessons. Um, Job 34 and 3. Grab that real quick.
The book of Job, chapter 34 and verse 3. For the for the ear trieth words as the mouth tasted meat.
For the ear trieth words as the mouth tasted meat. So, in order for you to get the understanding of Proverbs 13:25, the righteous eat it to the satisfying of his soul. That, again, this all comes back to the word. For the ear tried words of the mouth tasted meat, making that comparison, speaking metaphorically again. That's what's happening in Proverbs 13:25. The righteous eateth to the satisfying of his soul. What is he eating? What is he tasting? We read in one of the other lessons that if you tasted of the good word of the Lord, I'm paraphrasing again. Have you tasted of the word of the Lord? Okay, it's making that comparison again with this word and food. Sometimes water, sometimes it could be bread, sometimes it could be flour, sometimes talk about the wine, whatever the case is. It all comes back to this word. So the righteous eateth to the satisfying of his soul. So, in other words, he's studying, he's reading, he's taking in the word of the Lord to the satisfying of his soul. Because the more he learns, the more he keeps the commandments, the more his soul is going to be at peace. Such as when we read last Sabbath, my soul is as a weaned child, or as quiet as a weaned child. I'm paraphrasing it again. I know I'm messing them up a little bit, but we brought all these precepts out as we've been going along with these lessons. That's going precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, to get the understanding of these metaphors, these words that you find in the scriptures, in getting understanding of what they're talking about. So basically, what this is saying in Proverbs 13:25 is that the righteous eats of the meat, the honey, the milk, whatever the case is. We brought all these things out, which is what? This word. But the belly of the wicked shall want, but the mind of the wicked shall want. They're going to be wanting to get wisdom. They're going to want understanding. They're going to want knowledge, but they're not going to attain to it. Why? Because they're caught up in wickedness. They're not keeping the commandments. All right, let's go to Proverbs 18 and 8.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 18 and verse 8. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly.
All right, the words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. How could the words of a talebearer be as wounds? Because somebody that's going around telling stories about somebody, they most in most cases they're making stuff up. They're trying, they're hurting the reputation of this person, making this person look bad. And when this person finds out about what's being said about them, it hurts, as it says, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. Those words hurt. Those words go deep and cut deep into the mind, into the psyche. It's not literally talking about the belly, it's talking about your mind. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the mind, all right, or the heart, or the belly, all right. It's that simple. Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Let's go to Proverbs 18:20.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 18 and verse 20. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled.
All right. So again, a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. What is that talking about? Again, metaphorically speaking, right? A man's belly, meaning his mind, shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. Let's go to Matthew 7 and 17. And you're going to read from, actually start at 15, Matthew 7 and 15, and read to 20.
The book of Matthew, chapter 7 and verse 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You shall know them by their fruit. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, even good trees bring forth good fruit, but an corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewed down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruit you shall know them.
Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Again, talking about what? Some of these leaders in Israel. Let's go to Matthew 12 and 33. And you're going to read through 37.
The book of Matthew, chapter 12, and verse 33. Either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruits. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasures of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasures bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you that every idle word that man shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the days of judgment. For by the words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned.
All right. So again, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and its fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by its fruit. In other words, the tree is known by the things that he says. That tree representing men, and that fruit representing the words that come out of his mouth, such as when we're reading in Proverbs 18:20, a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. That fruit representing the words that are coming out of his mouth. All right. Um, um, there's just so many precepts.
Right.
Mm, let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4. You're going to read verses 3 through 5.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4,
Yeah.
3 to 5. The book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, and verse 3. But the multiplying broad of the ungodly shall not thrive, nor take deep rooting from bastard lips, nor lay any fast foundation. For though they flourish in branches for a time, yet standing not far, they shall be shaken with the winds, and through the force of winds they shall be rooted out. The imperfect branches shall be broken off, their fruit unprofitable, not ripe to eat, yeah, meat for nothing.
All right. So again, what is this talking about? This fruit. All right. This trees representing people. That fruit representing the things coming out of your mouth. All right. Let's go to Sirach 6 and 3.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 6, and verse 3. Thou shalt eat up thy leaves and lose thy fruit, and leave thyself as a dry tree.
Thou shalt eat up thy leaves and lose thy fruit and leave thyself as a dry tree. Again, metaphorically speaking, making that comparison between a man and the tree. The man, the tree representing a man. All right, read on verse 4.
Verse 4. A wicked soul shall destroy him that had it, and shall make him to be a laugh to scorn to his enemies.
Okay, and read on verse 5.
Verse 5. Sweet language will multiply friends, and a fair speaking tongue will increase kind greetness.
All right, so that's why sometimes when you read, it helps to read a little bit above or read a little bit below sometimes, because that gives you more of an idea contextually of what this is talking about, like Sirach 6 and 3. Thou shalt eat up thy leaves and lose thy fruit and leave thyself as a dry tree. In what context is this fruit talking about? Again, it's talking about language. How do we know that? Because as it says in verse 5, sweet language will multiply friends, and the fair speaking tongue will increase kind greetings. That's the context of what's going on here in Sirach 6. If you go back up to Sirach 1, read Sirach 1. I mean 6 and 1. Go up
Six
to
and
6
one.
and 1.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 6 and verse 1. Instead of a friend, become not an enemy, for thereby thou shalt inherit an ill name, shame, and reproach. Even so shall a sinner that hath a double tongue.
Even so shall a sinner that hath a double tongue. So again, the context of what this is talking about is what? Speaking. It's talking about the use of your tongue, the language that you use, whether it's kind greetings or otherwise. All right. Um, um, Sirach 27 and 6. Let's go there.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 27 and verse 6. The fruit declareth if the tree have been dressed, so is the utterance of a consent in the heart of man.
So is the utterance of a conceit in the heart of man. So again, the fruit declareth that the tree have been dressed. So is the utterance of a conceit in the heart of man. What does utterance mean? Speaking. And then verse 7 goes on to say what? Read on.
Verse 7. Praise no man before thou hearest him speak, for this is the trial of men.
All right. So the fruit again, metaphorically speaking, about words coming out of your mouth. All right. So then we go back to Proverbs 18:20. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Let's go to Proverbs 20 and 27. So what we're doing is showing you precept upon precept that this is how you get understanding of what some of these words are talking about, what they mean.
The the book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 27. The spirit of a man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly.
Searching all the inward parts of the belly. What is it searching? It's searching the mind, searching all the inward parts of the mind. Let's go to Proverbs 26 and 22.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 26 and verse 22. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly.
All right. So that's the same as Proverbs 18 and 8. It's repeated again in Proverbs. All right. The same thing. Let's go to John 7 and 38.
The book of John, chapter 7 and verse 38. He that believeth on me, as the scriptures hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water.
Shall flow rivers of living water out of his belly, meaning out of his mind, shall flow rivers of living water. All right. And what is that? Hold on one second. I don't want to mess this up. All right, go to a second Esdras 14 and 47. That's what I'm looking for. Go to second Esdras 14.
Second Esdras chapter 14 and verse 47.
Yeah.
It says, "For in them is the spring of understanding, the fountains of wisdom, and the stream of knowledge."
All right. So again, some of these precepts give an understanding of what some of these words are talking about. Let me see. Mm, just stop there. Yeah, just give me a second. I'm trying to find some. This is what I'm looking for. Here we go. Let's go to Jeremiah 2:13. This is the main one I'm looking for.
The book of Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 13. "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountains of living water, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water."
So again, this is the perfect precept right here for John 7 and 38. He that believeth on me, as the scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. And then when you go to Jeremiah 2:13, he says, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters," because Christ is that fountain of living waters. All right. So again, this goes back to Christ, it goes back to this word, it always goes back to what? The keeping of the commandments or not keeping of the commandments. Goes back to wisdom, goes back to knowledge, understanding. So he that believeth of me, as the scripture said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Meaning what? So out of your mind is going to flow rivers of wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and so on. All right. Let's go to Romans 16:18. So I hope this is clear. I pray this is clear for you.
The book of Romans chapter 16 and verse 18. For they that are such serve not our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple.
By their own belly, meaning their own mind, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple. Let's go to Sirach 19:12.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 19 and verse 12. As an arrow that sticketh in a man's thigh, so is a word within a fool's belly.
So is a word within a fool's mind. All right. So I pray you're getting the understanding now that sometimes the belly is talking about the mind, the heart's talking about the mind, and so on. Let's go. One more. Let's go to Sirach 23:6.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 23 and verse 6. Let not the greediness of the belly nor lust of the flesh take hold of me, and give not over me thy servant into an impudent mind.
Let not the greediness of the belly nor lust of the flesh take hold of me, and give not over me thy servant into an impudent mind. Again, the belly's talking about your mind. Let not the greediness of the mind nor the lust of the flesh take hold of me, and give not over me thy servant into an impudent mind. That's that flesh, that lust of the flesh, or that lust of the mind. That flesh also represents the mind also, and you read about that in the scriptures, the lust of the flesh, the spirit warring against the flesh. It's the flesh is talking about your mind also sometimes. All right, so the word heart, sometimes the word flesh, sometimes the word belly are talking about the mind. All right, um, let's go to Sirach 36 and verses 18 to 19.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 36 and verse 18. The belly devoureth all meat, yet is one meat better than another, as the plate tasted diverse kinds of vengeance, so doth in
Venison.
heart venisons, so doth in heart of understanding false speeches.
So again, speaking metaphorically, the belly devoureth all meat. So in other words, the mind devoureth all, all meats, meaning wisdom, knowledge, understanding, doctrines. All right. Yet is one meat better than another, or what is one doctrine, one teaching better than another? As the palate tasted diverse kinds of venison, so doth an heart of understanding false speeches. All right, so it's making that comparison. Okay, as we have gone through these lessons, we talked about what the meats are. At the beginning, we talk about again Hebrews 5 and 12 through 14. For when for the time you ought to be teachers, have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles and the oracles of God, which are become such, have need of milk and not of strong meat. All right. Some of you are not ready for that meat. Your belly, your mind is not ready to devour that meat yet. Okay. So keep that in mind. Um, so again, let's go to Job 32 and where are we at? 32. Let's go to Job 32 and 17 through 19.
The book of Job, chapter 32 and verse 17. I said, I will answer also my part. I also will show my opinion. For I am full of matter. The spirit within me constraineth me. Behold, my belly is as wine which hath no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles.
All right. So at the beginning, we talked about Job 32:19. We just read, Behold, my belly is as wine, which hath no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. Sometimes, again, in order to get understanding of that, you can read up a little bit, and it might give you somewhat of a contextual understanding of what it means. It says, I said, I will answer also my part. I also will show my opinion. Your opinion comes from where? Your mind. For I am full of matter. How are you full of matter? Your mind is full of thoughts. The spirit within me constraineth me. Behold, my belly is as wine, talking about his mind, is as wine, or his mind is full of what? Full of matter, is full of thoughts. So again, behold, my belly is as wine which have no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. So again, the belly is talking about um, the mind. The wine is talking about wisdom, growing in wisdom. Okay. Pray this is, it should be simple at this point. It should make perfect sense now. Let's go to Matthew 9 and 14 through 17. So now knowing that the scriptures, when it talks about wine, is sometimes talking about wisdom. Now, when you get into some of these parables of Christ and things like that, should make a little bit more sense to you now. So, Matthew
The,
9 and 14 through 17.
the book of Matthew, chapter 9, and verse 14. Then came to him the disciples of John, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but thy disciples fast not? And Jesus said unto them, can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the day will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then shall they fast. No man putteth a piece of new cloth unto an old garment, for that which is put in to fill it up taketh for the garment, and rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved.
And the bottles perish, but they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. That's why, again, for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which are the first principles of the oracles of God. You have to humble yourself down as a new child. You have to desire the sincere milk of the word. You have to be willing to be retaught. You've got to be willing to become a new man in order to what? Fill your bottle up with that new wine. You can't remain that same old sinful, wicked, evil person that you were in the world and think you're going to be able to take this knowledge or take this wisdom and fill your mind up with it. It's not going to happen. You can't put new wine into an old bottle. You can't put new wisdom, new knowledge, new understanding into an old mindset. Like these Christians, that's why they can't understand what's going on in the scriptures. They're holding on to all this old garbage that they've taught and been taught in the Christian church. So you try and come to them with this new knowledge, this new understanding of the scriptures, they can't receive it. They can't understand it. They can't fathom it because they're not willing to let that old stuff go. It can't happen. This is primarily what this is talking about in this parable. No man putteth a piece of new cloth into an old garment. Can you do that? Are you going to do that? For that which is put in to fill it up, take it from the garment, and the rent is made worse. You've seen that, people try and put a patch of clothing on a hole, you know what I mean? And it makes it look even worse. It's better you just left the hole there in the shirt. All right. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth over. You're trying to put new wine into an old bottle. In other words, you're trying to put new knowledge into an old mindset or a person that's set in their ways. It's not going to happen. The wine is going to run over. It's not going to become fruitful. That person is not going to grow in truth and knowledge. It says, and the bottles perish, but they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. You want that new wine, you got to become a new bottle. You got to become a new man, a new woman, a new person. Okay? Let's go to Psalms 119 and 83.
The book of Psalms, chapter 119 and verse 83. And it says, for I am become like a bottle in the smoke, yet do I not forget thy statutes.
Because, especially a glass bottle, how is a glass bottle formed? It has to be heated, it has to be shaped. That's how you're going to get that bottle. All right. As it says, for I am become like a bottle in the smoke, yet do I not forget thy statutes. Become like a new bottle. Then you can be filled up with that new substance. Now your mind is clear enough that you're not going to forget the statutes of the Lord. Now are you going to be capable of keeping the commandments of the Lord? All right. Let's go to Proverbs 9 and 1 through 6.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 9 and verse 1. Wisdom had builded her house. She had hewed out her seven pillars. She had killed her beasts. She had mingled her wine. She had also furnished her table. She had sent forth her maidens. She cried upon the highest places of the city. Who is simple? Let him turn in hither. As for him that wanted understanding, she saith to him, come, eat my bread and drink my wine, which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish and go in the way of understanding.
Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish and live and go in the way of understanding. So, in other words, like we're just using Christians as an example. Forsake those foolish doctrines that you've been taught, those foolish and unlearned preachers and priests and ministers that you've learned under, and live and go in the way of understanding. Come eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Let go of those old doctrines and philosophies and teachings that you've learned before. All right, let's go to Proverbs 20 and 1.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 1. Wine is a mocker, strong. Drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise.
Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Again, sometimes you think about wine, sometimes it's talking about lies, talking about deceits. All right. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. Whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Sometimes it's talking about philosophies, doctrines, teachings. All right. And some of our people are deceived by wine. They're deceived by these different philosophies, these different teachings, these different doctrines. All right. Let's go to Proverbs 23 and 29 through 35.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 23 and verse 29. Who hath woe? Who had sorrow? Who had contentions? Who had babbling? Who had wounds without cause? Who had redness of eyes? They that tarry along at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color, in the cup when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange woman, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yeah, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shall thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When I shall awake, I will seek it yet again.
All right. So again, we read earlier about what wine can do to a person if it's drank not in moderation, if it's heavily consumed. Bad things can happen. So as it says, who hath woe? In other words, who are those that come to destruction? Who hath sorrows? When people's minds get to the point to where you see that drunk person just sitting there, they're drinking their sorrows away, sad, gloomy, just broken spiritually. Who have contentions? Those people you see, they're quick to get, raging and unruly and ready to fight, ready to contend and argue. Who have babbling? You see that those people that have been drinking too much and they just can't stop talking. Foolish stuff coming out of their mouths. Who hath wounds without cause? Those people that have been drinking too much, been too much at the liquor, falling down, hurting themselves, crashing into stuff. That's what this is talking about. Who have redness of eyes? Those people that have been drinking too much, and as you read in the scripture that his eyes will be red with wine, talking about Christ. We talk about that all the time. We give the description of Christ that his eyes would be red with wine, meaning that he drank wine in moderation, which makes the eyes red. That's that person that's consumed with alcohol, that person consumed with liquor. It says, they that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Those are the people that are suffering from those things, but not just physically, but also spiritual wine. Those people that have taken in that mixed wine or those different philosophies, those different doctrines, they're taking in that mixed wine. They're caught up in confusion. It says, look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent and stingeth like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange women. Those strange women represents what? Different philosophies and doctrines also. And thine heart shall utter perverse things. That's what's happening in these churches. You got these priests, these ministers teaching and uttering these weird doctrines. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. You've been put into this deep sleep by the Lord. All right. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9. I'm going to read verses 7 through 8.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9 and verse 7. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy heart lack no ointment.
Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. And again, that's going to be coming up. We're going to be talking about clothing, your garments, and things like that. All right. Let's go to Isaiah 28 and 5 through 8.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 28. 8 and verse 5. In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory and for a diadem,
Diadem.
diadem of beauty unto the residue of his people, and for a spirit of judgment to him that sitteth in judgment, and for strength to them that turn to the battle to the gate. But they also have error through wine and through strong drink, are out of the way. The priests and the prophets have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all the tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean.
All right. So what is it? They've erred through wine. They've erred through what? Through lies, through different teachings and doctrines and philosophies. Said, but they also have erred through wine and through strong and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up in wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all the tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. All right, so again, going precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, to get an understanding of what all this is talking about. Let's go to Isaiah 29 and 9 through 14.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 29 and verse 9. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord had poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and had closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, had he covered, and the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I am not learned. Wherefore the Lord said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precepts of men. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among these people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid.
And the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. All right, as it says, they are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. That's why at the beginning of the lesson, we started out with what? Awake out of the sleep. Awake up out of that deep sleep. Romans 13 and 11. Grab it real quick again. Romans 13 and 11.
The book of Romans, chapter 13 and verse 11. And that knowing the time, then and that knowing the time that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believe.
So it's time for our people to wake up out of that deep sleep that the Lord has said he put us in, as we're reading in Isaiah 29. All right. Again, for the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. All right. So again, all of this comes back to what? The Bible being written metaphorically, similitudes, parables, in order for you to get the understanding, to get the secrets of these meanings, you've got to go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. No other way around it. Let's go to Jeremiah.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 23 and verse 9. My heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man and like a man whom wine hath overcome because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness.
All right. So again, all this always comes back to the words of the Lord. Okay, that's what we're showing you. In order for us to live, it all comes back to the word. Again, my heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man, and like a man whom wine hath overcome. So again, it's always speaking in metaphors because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness. It always comes back to the word. The principal things were the whole use of a man's life, the blood of the grape. It always comes back to the word. All right. Let's go to Second Maccabees chapter 15 and verse 39.
The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 15 and verse 39. For as it is hurtful to drink wine or water alone, and as wine mingled with water is pleasant and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delighteth the ears of them that read the story, and here shall be an end.
All right. So again, metaphorically speaking, making that comparison between what? The person listening or their speech to the wine. Again, for as it is hurtful to drink wine or water alone, and as wine mingled with water is pleasant and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delighteth the ears of them that read the story. It's making that comparison. The wine is a metaphor for what? For the wisdom, the understanding, the knowledge that you're getting from what? What you're reading, from what you're studying, from what you're, the words that are being spoken. Okay. You've got to be able to make that comparison. You got to go into these precepts to get the understanding of it. All right. There's no other way. And with this, again, we have to understand that sometimes the wine represents lies. It can sometimes represent philosophies, doctrines, teachings. Sometimes it represents wisdom. There's a lot of different things that wine represents in the scriptures. All right. I actually give you some precepts, some more precepts showing that it's talking, can sometimes talk about lies. Let's go to Habakkuk, the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. You're going to read verses 2 through 5.
The book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 2. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon the tables that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointment time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Through it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will
Though it
not
tarry,
tarry. Say it again.
though it tarry,
For the vision is yet
you had
for
said
an
through, you
appointment
had said through it tarry, but
through a tarry. Okay. Let me see. Verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Behold, his soul, which is lifted
and
up, is
tarry is
not up.
meaning wait. Though it,
Right. Verse 4. Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yeah, also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is a death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people.
All right, so this is talking about the nation of Esau. This is talking about those people. Says again, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. In other words, he transgresses by what? By his lies, his doctrines, his different philosophies, his science. Okay, it says, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire is hell, and is his death, and cannot be satisfied. That's what you read about in the book of Obadiah when it's talking about um, if a thief come to thee, a thief by night, wouldn't he, leave a little something? If he, steals some grapes, wouldn't he leave some grapes in the grape field? Not this man. He won't do that because he can't be satisfied. He's never satisfied. And that's another thing that our people don't understand of what's going on right now. That Esau is not satisfied with, he's in control of the earth right now. But he's got to go to the point to where he only wants his people here. He doesn't want to share this with nobody. He doesn't want to share this planet with anybody else but with his people. That's the difference between him and all the other nations. Okay. Um, Except maybe the Chinese, the Moabites, because they
Hmm.
think they're going to be next. And if they could have it their way, they would be the only ones here. But when you look at our nation of people, you know what I mean? We've never had a problem with sharing with everybody else. And that goes with some of the other nations also. But when it comes to Esau, he wants this all to himself. He don't want to share with nobody. All right. As this says, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth the desire is hell and is a death and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. All right, let's go to Micah 2 and 11.
The book of Micah, chapter 2, and verse 11. If a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee a wine and a strong drink, he shall even be the prophet of this people.
So let me read that again. Micah 2:11 says, if a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink. He shall even be the prophet of this people. So again, this is showing you that this wine sometimes represent lies, represent falsehoods, false doctrines, false teachings, false philosophies. All right. That's what it sometimes can mean. Sometimes the wine is talking about wisdom. All right. It's talking about other things. We've been going over that. So, Lord's will, this is making sense to you. All right. Let's go to Jeremiah 51 and verses 6 through 7.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, 51 and verses 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad.
Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Not mad as they're angry, that means they're going out of their wits' end, they're going crazy. What have they drunken? They've drunken of her lies, they've drunken of her false doctrines, her philosophies, her customs. That's what it is. All right. Um, let's go to Jeremiah 13, and you're going to read verses 12 through 14.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 13, and verse 12. Therefore thou shalt speak unto them this word, that saith the Lord God of Israel. Every bottle shall be filled with wine, and they shall say unto thee, do we not certainly know that every bottle shall be filled with wine? Then shalt thou say unto them, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will fill all the inhabitants of this land, even the kings that sit upon David's throne, and the priests and the prophets and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with drunkenness. And I will dash them one against another, even the fathers and the sons together, saith the Lord. I will not pity, nor spare, nor have mercy, but destroy them.
All right. So again, this is speaking metaphorically. Okay. As it says, therefore thou shalt speak unto them this word. Who's the them? Talking about Israel. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, every bottle shall be filled with wine. What do those bottles represent? It represents the people. And they shall say unto thee, do we not certainly know that every bottle shall be filled with wine? In other words, meaning that every person shall be filled with what? With wine, or with wisdom, or with a teaching, a doctrine, a philosophy? Then shalt thou say unto them, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will fill all the inhabitants of this land, even the kings that sit upon David's throne, and the priests and the prophets, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with drunkenness. Because we broke the commandments, he's going to fill these bottles with what? Different wine. He's going to make them drunk in the wine or the philosophies and doctrine and customs of the other nations. Says, and I will dash them one against another, even the fathers and the sons together, saith the Lord. I will not pity, nor spare, nor have mercy, but destroy them. Let's go to Psalms 56. You're going to read verses 8 through 10.
The book of Psalms, chapter 56, and verse 8. Uh, Thou tellest my wanderings. Put thou my tears into thy bottles. Are they not in thy book? When I cry unto thee, then shall my enemies turn back. This I know, for God is for me. In God will I praise his word, in the Lord will I praise his words.
All right, again, so you see this all comes back again to what? This book, this word. Okay, let's go to Luke 5 and 33 through 39.
The book of Luke, chapter 5, and verse 33. And they said unto him, why do the disciples of John fast often and make prayers? And likewise the disciples of the Pharisees, but thine eat and drink. And he said unto them, can ye make the children of the bride chamber fast while the bridegroom is with them? But the day will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then shall they fast in those days. And he spake also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old. If otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new garment, not with the old. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. No man also having drunk old wine strengtheneth the way desireth new, for he saith, the old is better.
All right, that's what Christian. That is a Christian. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new, for he saith the old is better. They'd rather stay in that stupor. They'd rather stay in that old philosophy and doctrine, that old religion and keep learning these lies. Again, he says, and no man put the new wine into old bottles. Also, the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. These Christians don't really want to become a new person. They don't want to change. They want to stay where they're comfortable, where they can sin as much as they want and stay in the pleasures of the world. They don't want to convert. They don't truly want to repent. That's why there's no man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new. They don't care for this new wine. They don't want the truth. They don't want to be brought up out of that sleep. They don't want to be brought up out of that stupor. They love that drunken estate that Creflo and all these different pastors and priests and ministers have put them in. They think the old is better. Why is that? Because they've made sin easy. They made it pleasurable. It made it to where it feels so good they don't want to give it up. All right. Let's go to Revelation 18, and you're going to read verses 1 through 3.
The book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is become the habitations of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean, heartful bird.
And
For all
hateful
nations,
bird.
hateful bird. Yeah. Um, for all nations have drunken of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies.
Okay, so this is all the way back at the end of the scripture, the end of the Bible, the last books of the Bible, and Revelation, talking about what? Babylon the Great, talking about here in America. He says, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a string voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils. That's what you see going on in America right now. Babylon the Great is America. When you read the book of Revelation, America is that place that's spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. America is that place that has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit. Every foul spirit that you can think of is found here in America, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Don't you see what's going on right now? All this hate towards the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, towards God's people. It says, for all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. All the other nations of the earth have had a hand in the captivity of the Israelites. All the other nations, including America, have grown rich by what? Dealing with America. America is Babylon the Great. There's no getting around that. And all the nations of the earth, through what? Through the philosophies, through the doctrines, through the customs of America. And how were they able to spread it in modern times? In the last 20, 25 years, they've greatly increased their influence of the other nations through what? Through the internet. From social media in the last 20, 25 years, American influence upon all the other nations has grown increasingly. It has just skyrocketed the amount of information people are getting from America. Now, all of a sudden, you got people that lived on little islands in Asia and the Philippines and Cambodia and Vietnam and all over the world suddenly um, dressing like, talking like, dancing like, trying to do everything like America, which they ultimately stole from us. TikTok, and which is a Chinese made company, has grown in influence of what? Through America, music, movies, television. Now they've got Bollywood over in India instead of Hollywood. You've got Indian rap now. You have you heard that Indian rap
Yep.
music? They've
Mm-hmm.
got Cambodian rap music where they're rapping in Cambodian language, Vietnamese rap language. They've got different African rappers now, and it's all come through what? Through social media. American influence has been able to spread like wildfire ever since, like Facebook and MySpace and all this social media has come into play. They've been able to push their influence and push it and push it and push it even faster. All right. Um, let's go to Sirach 39:26 again.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 29, 39, and 26. The principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil and clothing.
All right. So as we've come to see that, number one, wine was used in our oblations and in our offerings, our burnt offerings. So wine was very important in us being able to get forgiven for our sins because they were a part of, again, our oblations and our burnt offerings. We had to do what? Pour out that wine, and so on at the altar. Okay, so it was very important for our daily life. Also, in the drinking of wine, we didn't get into it, but Christ drank wine. His One of his first miracles that he performed was turning water into wine. Okay, um, he even talked about drinking wine moderately in order to for health benefits, which we read about also that even the science has proven that wine drunken moderately can have some health benefits. It's when it's becoming overly drink that you start to see these bad things happen to you health wise. All right. Um, Also, the wine representing wisdom. Okay, the wine representing these different philosophies and doctrines, wine representing lies. So, wine has several different representations in the scriptures. All right, um, let's go to Colossians chapter 4 and read verses 1 through 6.
The book of Colossians, chapter 4, and verse 1. Masters, give unto your servants that which is just and equal, knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. Continue in prayer and watch in the same with thanksgiving, with praying also for us that God would open unto us a door of utterance to speak the mysteries of Christ, for which I am also in bonds, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak, walk in wisdom towards them that are without, redeem the times. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man.
So, as it tells us, walk in wisdom towards them that are without. We have the majority of our brothers and sisters, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that are outside the Israelite community. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand that they are the Israelites. That is everything that's going on in this earth is because of them. They have no clue. They're clueless. And that's why we've got to walk in wisdom towards them that are without. We've got to be mindful of the things that we say and do that could have an effect on our brothers and sisters that haven't woken up yet. As it says, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know you ought to answer every man. Going out on the streets and antagonizing people is not what we're supposed to be doing. We already know when we go out there and you start speaking the truth, people are going to be getting upset. They're going to be getting mad. They're going to get angry. We don't have to add to that antagonizing and purposely trying to get people angry, getting people upset. Again, what was that definition or that meaning of provoking? Stimulate or give rise to a reaction or emotion, typically a strong or unwelcome one in someone. Stimulate or incite someone to do or feel something, especially by arousing anger in them. Deliberately make someone annoyed or angry, right? Which is what we were talking about at the very beginning of the lesson. We have to learn how to speak. We have to learn how to um, do things in a way that is uh, with wisdom and without appearing to be threatening. Be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. It's exactly what Christ told us. Let's go to First Thessalonians chapter 5. I'm going to read verses 12 through 23.
The book of First Thessalonians, chapter 5, and verse 12. Um, And we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among yourselves. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble, I can say that,
Feeble minded,
feeble-minded feeble-minded, support the weak, be patient towards all men. See that one render evil for evil unto any man,
see that
but
none render evil for evil unto any man.
see that none render evil for evil unto any man, but ever follow that which is good, both among yourselves and to all men. Rejoice over more, pray without
Evermore,
ceasing,
rejoice evermore.
rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, in everything giving thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Quench not the spirit. Yeah, quench not the spirit, despise not the prophesyings, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil, and the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray God, your whole spirit. Hold on, that didn't sound right. Verse 23. And the very good God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved, blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ.
As it says, abstain from all appearance of evil. Abstain from all appearance of evil. And again, many in this Israelite community just seem to not get that. Let's go to Second Thessalonians chapter 3. You're going to read verses 1 through 5.
Second Thessalonians, First Thessalonians, the book of Second Thessalonians, chapter 3 and verse 1. Finally, brethren, pray for us that the word of the Lord may have free course and be glorified even as it is with you, and that we may be delivered from unreasonable and wicked men, for all men have not faith. But the Lord is faithful, who shall establish you and keep you from evil. And we have confidence in the Lord touching you, that ye both do and will do the things which we command you. And the Lord direct your hearts into the love of God, into the patient waiting for Christ.
And into the patient waiting for Christ. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom, most high Christ bless once again. Blessed Sabbath to you. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath, and we, Lord's will, shall see you next Sabbath. Shalom.